Hello, my name is Katie Schmitz. I am a relatively new fellow of NAK, and as such was invited to do a little mini TED Talk to introduce myself to you all. And so I am an exercise oncology researcher, and I thought I would use my mini TED Talk to talk to you all about exercise oncology and as a bit of a primer. So to start with, I want to put it into context. Put cancer into context of the other chronic diseases that are the common focus of exercise physiology research. So about 650,000 people die of a heart attack every year in the United States, and about 610,000 people die of cancer every year in the US, both of those figures for the US. And 1.7 million people are diagnosed with cancer every year in the United States. And the good news is that many cancers are now survivable to at least 5, if not more years. Most common cancer survivors are the breast cancer, prostate cancer, and colon cancer. Even though lung cancer is a common diagnosed cancer, people don't tend to survive it as well. And so we don't have as many lung cancer survivors around, though that is certainly changing. So we've had research dating back to the 1910s that have indicated that there was some reason why we should care about physical activity and cancer, and epidemiologic research showing that exercise was associated with reduced risk for incident cancer started to be published back in the 1980s. We now have hundreds and hundreds of epidemiologic studies that show us that exercise on a regular basis is associated with reduced incidence of 7 common cancers. And recently, actually, the US Physical Activity Guidelines Advisory Committee published a review. First author was Ann McTiernan, and that review drew very much the same conclusions as the ACSM Roundtable Guidelines review that was led by Alpha Patel from the American Cancer Society. Both of them basically looked at the epidemiologic evidence and concluded that there were 7 different common cancer types that were prevented by being more physically active. And so exercise for cancer prevention is part of the national federal-wide guidelines for physical activity. So that's the prevention side of things. We also have a robust evidence base in the field of exercise oncology for the benefits of exercise for people who are undergoing treatment. And the most recent ACSM roundtable on this topic was in 2018. I was really honored to co-lead this with my colleague, Chuck Matthews from NCI. And the primary paper on the topic of exercise for people as they're going through cancer treatment and shortly after was very capably co-led by Carrie Winter-Stone and Kristen Campbell, published in MedScience, Sports and Exercise. And what we were able to conclude in this massive review, we did basically a review of 16 different cancer health-related outcomes in order to discern whether there was sufficient evidence that we could draw a fit prescription, frequency, intensity, time, and type prescription specifically for these outcomes that occur in people that are undergoing treatment and survivors. And we were able to conclude that we could draw a fit prescription for 8 of the 16 outcomes. And they included anxiety and depression, physical function, breast cancer-related lymphedema, sleep, bone health, quality of life. It's like the dwarves, you always forget the last one, don't you? It'll come to me. So there are a variety of symptoms that we know are altered in a positive way. Fatigue, there it is. So it's the number 1, actually. And there are clinical guidelines from a number of different clinical organizations in the field of oncology that say that physical activity is the number 1 treatment for cancer-related fatigue. So one of the things that's sort of been interesting to me as a result of sort of the growth of this field, and it really truly has been an exponential growth over the past decade is how exercise oncology has not been slotted into all of our undergraduate kinesiology programs in the same way that exercise and heart disease, obesity, and diabetes is so central to how we train our undergraduates and our master's students. There are specialty programs in a number of places across the country, but if we look at the average kinesiology program, how are we moving the needle there and getting cancer to be on equal footing with the other common chronic diseases in the United States? Well, help is coming. I am delighted to say that I am under contract with Wolters Kluwer, along with two co-authors, to write a book called Essentials of Exercise Oncology. And this book is intended to become the standard text for an undergraduate course in exercise oncology for kinesiology majors across the United States and beyond. And we hope to develop the PowerPoint slides and study guides and all of the test questions and all of the other accoutrements that are necessary in order for this book to become white labeled and be able to be the standard for teaching undergraduates about exercise oncology. So, we really need to get to the place where we do that in order to develop the evidence, the workforce for us to be able to have robust exercise oncology programming for all of the cancer patients and survivors in the United States and beyond. I am proud as an former president of American College of Sports Medicine to have started something as my presidential initiative at ACSM called the Moving Through Cancer Task Force. And Moving Through Cancer is the first disease-specific initiative that lives under the auspices of the Exercise is Medicine program at ACSM. And what we started with for Moving Through Cancer is the idea that we wanted exercise to be standard of care in the setting of cancer care by 2029. And so we brought together a multidisciplinary group to set an agenda and say, well, what is it would have to happen in order for that to occur? And so we developed 5 different parts of our agenda, including the workforce development that I've talked about, and we have a number of things happening in that front. We also were interested in program development. We have a registry that we've developed that has over 1,800 programs around the world on the ACSM website, EIM website. We were interested in policy changes and understanding the costs associated with delivering exercise oncology programming. We were interested in stakeholder awareness and engagement. And obviously, we were very interested in research and evaluation. What I mean by research and evaluation is that there are actually many unanswered questions in the area of exercise oncology. And we certainly need to be doing more efficacy research in the area of exercise oncology. But we also really need to evaluate the existing programs so that we understand what the secret sauce is for a successful program, so that we can spread those programs more easily across the country. And that brings me to the bifurcation of the field of exercise oncology. So right now, there's really 2 tracks, I would say, in thinking about research in the area of exercise oncology. One track really falls in the direction of implementation science and is about trying to figure out the health services issues, the health economics issues, and other implementation science issues in order for us to translate the robust evidence base that already exists into standard of care exercise offerings for people undergoing treatment and cancer survivors. The other track, the bifurcation, is that the other track is that there are still some extremely important questions that need to be answered about the potential for exercise to be an adjunct to existing cancer treatments. So for that track, There is a new initiative that has just been funded by the National Cancer Institute, holding NICTO. The grants are going to be reviewed in fall of 2021, and they will fund, I believe, 4 to 6 different centers, hopefully mine, to do large trials to answer the question, does exercise during cancer treatment alter the efficacy of that treatment? So is there an improvement in chemotherapy tolerance, radiation tolerance, et cetera? Are there improvements in outcomes as a result of doing exercise during cancer treatments? So that kind of research and preclinical and phase 0, phase 1 trials to understand the specific targets for exercise and cancer treatment, as well as the doses necessary of exercise for efficacious exercise interventions during cancer treatment are really unknown. There are some brilliant scientists who are working in that area. In terms of my own work and what I have published, I am very proud of the work that I've done on the guidelines. I was the first author on the first guidelines from ACSM for exercise in cancer survivors, and was deeply involved in the second round of the ACSM guidelines as well. But the work that I'm probably best known for has to do with the effects of resistance training in particular on a common breast cancer late effect called lymphedema. And the clinical advice that breast cancer survivors were given prior to my PAL trial results that came out about a decade ago at this point were that they should really avoid lifting anything heavier than 5 pounds ever again in their lives with the affected limb. And of course, that's problematic because, you know, my children weighed 8 pounds at birth, and a gallon of milk weighs 8 pounds, and grocery bags tend to be 9 to 10 pounds. And we have a lot of things that we carry in our lives. And so I came into the field, in 2001, and was doing a pilot research study, and discovered that in fact, strength training might be good for women with and at risk for lymphedema, which was a surprising finding. And so we followed that up with a large, well-powered trial called the Physical Activity and Lymphedema Trial. Results were published in JAMA, New England Journal of Medicine, and the results really changed clinical practice. And I'm very proud to say that not only did we find that it was safe for women to do strength training after their breast cancer, whether they had or did not have lymphedema, but that we cut the number of lymphedema-related flare-ups in half, and we reduced the likelihood of onset of lymphedema by 70% with this program. We have now translated that program into a physical therapy-based program that is offered, that it can be paid for by third-party payers, by insurance, and physical therapists and exercise physiologists can learn how to deliver that program if they go to closed training and consulting and take a course for $125. So as a result, I'm very proud to say that I am among the clinical trialists that has actually translated their work into clinical practice. So the program is now called Strength After Breast Cancer. And it's a very proud moment for me to have gotten that work out there and into the hands of clinicians that can do some good with breast cancer patients. I continue to do work on improving supportive care for breast cancer and other cancers. And I've been an NCI-funded scientist since 2004, 2003. I continue to do research on cancer prevention and exercise for people who have had a cancer diagnosis. So that's a little bit about what I do. And I'm really looking forward to hearing some of the other TED Talks and hoping that we can all be together in person for next year's meeting. Thank you for listening. Take care.